I'm waiting to see if it invites me to this live.
All right, well, let's see if it invites you to this live. So it has been almost, this was just total and complete devastation out here.
Yeah.
It was floating bodies.
Not to be dramatic
Not
or
to be
anything.
dramatic, but it was floating bodies. And I've heard dramatic stories of people scooping, degrading fish, and I, firsthand seen a lot of things. It's been a year.
It's been a year. It's been almost 12 months to the day since this trophy fishery went belly up, literally.
It's pretty awful. I can say that that smell never leaves you. And it was the air was thick that week.
It was
really thick. It was over 100 degrees, right? And it was thick. Between the rotting fish and the cyanobacteria, I don't know what smelled worse, but it was bad. I know I got sick. I know Hannah got sick. It was pretty rough. What do you do?
It's invited me to do something, John, and I don't know. Must rotate your phone to join.
Direction.
I don't know.
Clearly, this is the very first live ever from the Slab Lab.
That's the first time I've ever been live.
We're working out some details.
Report a problem.
There you go.
Love that for me.
Report a problem.
Here, we'll see if we can pull it up.
While we're figuring out how to check in so we can answer questions and chat back and forth with anybody that has anything.
We have a viewer. It might be you.
It's probably you. And we just spent a long 12-hour day in the Alabama heat. And that was
We got Jesse.
after.
Hey, Jesse! How are you?
Man.
Just lay it down. I can see it.
There you go.
I guess I'm just going to read your question.
You can just decline that and go directly to the live. And just turn your volume down so we don't have an echo.
I'm going to happily mute you.
That is a really good idea. The world wishes I came with a mute button.
Wow.
So let's take a walk through what the last year's been. I don't think we need to talk too much about devastation because we've documented that it happened.
Yeah.
But what was next? What was like the first glimmer of hope that you had that made you decide to double down and put in all the effort that you've put in over the last year into recovery?
I think it was just getting a better and deeper understanding of how this system operates and needs to operate at a trophy sport fish level.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everybody that follows me, they joke on me because I love the bugs. I'm all about understanding the zooplankton. They've really sort of been with me on this journey to understand the importance of the food web. And when we were restoring the water out here, we got to go like really dialed in on all that sort of thing. And not a lot of people get to do that. We literally rebuilt this place from the bottom up. And we're seeing the results of that now because the bluegills are in fantastic shape. And that's why.
Yeah.
So just gaining that understanding from that level was huge for me.
Mm-hmm. So before we jump any further,
Yes.
why don't you go ahead and share that live with the followers? And
How do I do this? Right here. Live at the Slab Lab. Thank you all for being patient with us as we're working all the kinks out.
We finally, we've done a lot here at the Slab Lab. And one thing we did, because we were tired of getting no cell service out here, was we installed Starlink.
Yep.
So thank you, Starlink, so we can actually do a live, because that's the reason that there were never lives before here. Or was it because you had too many secrets on how you built your trophy fishery?
I don't know. I think the bluegills were so big, they were blocking the Wi-Fi out here, to be honest with you. And we're going to get back to that. We're going to have big fish out here. We do have big fish out here. Really pleased with all the results that we're seeing thus far. We've got a couple of things that we have to tweak because we're learning this as we go. And the Slab Lab is a system like no other. she really does have her own, plan, and we have to sort of pivot from time to time and meet her where she is and then try to catch up when she gets ahead of us. So this is a truly unique place. And it has been really cool to see the cleanup, the restoration, and where we are now with having the fish back in the water.
And I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I've been doing this almost 30 years. The first time I heard you talk about how unique the Slab Lab was, I was like, yeah, right. And then I showed up,
Yeah.
and everything you just said is true.
It's very true.
It's a unique body of water and a unique, gorgeous setting.
Yeah.
And really everything around this body of water, everything under this body of water, and the climate here all contributes to what you have.
It does. It does. So if you guys want to ask questions or anything, we're trying to test all this out. I can see your questions if you type them in.
Looks like we have a bunch of people on right now.
Woohoo!
Let us know your questions about what's going on at the Slab Lab. We're happy to share most of the secret.
Yeah, so your glimmer of hope.
My glimmer of hope started with bugs,
Yeah.
microscopic organisms, no big fish.
Mhm.
And that's what people need to understand. If you cannot capitalize on the potential growth rate of your fish from the time it hatches out of the egg and is born into your system and all those things, you are missing the biggest chunk of growth that you can get out of that fish. And we're able to do that now because of the bugs. I love the bugs. Okay.
The bug recovery was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that in a massive scale. We set thresholds for every single aspect of this project, from water quality thresholds, dissolved oxygen thresholds, where we wanted to be for aquatic vegetation, which we're still not quite there yet. We're working on that. The zooplankton, the invertebrates. I mean, every aspect, we have parameters that we're trying to follow and stay within certain guide rails. And the wild, I think that was one of the wildest things early on. I think it was our post 45-day checkup when we got those zooplankton numbers back.
Yeah.
And we had already exceeded the numbers we were shooting for spring in November, when things were dying off for the season. I mean, that was like, okay, this pond is different.
Yeah.
It does different things. I mean, it also grew things that we didn't want it to grow.
Yeah.
With the crawfish, and they grew to record sizes.
Yes.
Google says that her crawfish shouldn't be the size that it is, but here
It's
we are.
really rare to have giant red swamp crawls like we did. We had them in high density out here. They did cause a problem. They made for some great content though. So.
We had a few good crawfish
Everyone
too.
loves a crawl monster.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so before the glimmer of hope that you described, there was the reset.
Yeah.
And the metaflock went in midday through the afternoon.
Right.
Talk me through your walk into the Slab Lab the next morning when you saw the water.
Well, I mean, first of all, I saw the bottom of my pond, which I have never seen. It's not been seen since we photographed when we dug it. And like Dad was out here cutting the channels, building the berms.
Back when film was a thing.
Before it was Polaroid picture.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how long ago it was, 30 years ago. We turned 30 years old in June out here. We'd never seen the bottom, especially the way that we saw it now when we did that metaflock. It was emotional for me. People know I'm crazy about my fish. They know I'm crazy about growing them, but it was like I was seeing where those fish lived. I was seeing where they were going, like all these things. And it was just mind blowing that we did that in 24 hours, really less than 24 hours. I think I even, the day after the reset, when I pulled up out here, y'all were already working down on the dock. I was going around the pond and I stopped my truck and Heather came over and I remember just hugging her and crying because I was so excited because I felt like, okay, I can work with this.
Mhm.
You know, just 2 or 3 months prior, it was dead fish everywhere. And now I was seeing beautiful, clean water and just had a lot of hope for what was to come. So it was a really cool experience and nobody would have believed it if we hadn't filmed it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things for me about that morning was I was running the drone and I put the drone up and could see these concrete boulders that
Yeah.
were 7 feet deep in the pond. We didn't see anything in the pond
No.
the previous day. So that was cool. So you had the progression of toxic cyanobacteria laden water that somehow was growing monsters
Yeah.
and went through the reset, came
There's
out
Ted.
the other side.
You'll see Ted. The
But
giant snapping turtle is in the corner. I wish there was a way I could show you guys.
there's a way we can show them.
Y'all want to see Ted?
It's
Say
live.
hi.
It's not scripted.
He was the good morning post today.
Oh, he went away. He didn't like me coming. He didn't like me coming. But yes, he was the good morning post. Right?
Okay, well, we tried to show you our resident snap turtle, who's probably about 45 or 50 pounds. He's a big dude, and he's been with us for a very long time. He's probably been here from the beginning. Anyway, we were saying something before I just interrupted
talking-
you.
Yeah, so talking about the progression and how we got to clear water and then we went to the green algae.
Yeah.
So the good algae, which
Uh-huh.
is what fed those zoos.
Uh-huh.
And if you haven't yet, go look on YouTube or search in Facebook and look for our zooplankton episode. Again, I've been doing this almost 30 years. I've never seen zooplankton like we pulled out of that first sample. It was crazy. Sarah, you started calling it mother's milk, and it did look
Was
like
mother's
milk.
milk. And this was the land of milk and honey because of that, because that is what, once that fish hatches and the yolk sac is gone, that is exactly what they go to feed to. They have to do that before they can feed on chironomids or anything else. That is their first forage. So having that in the numbers we had it in, I was like, well, I'm not stressing out that I can't get fish on pellet feed, because technically right now we still do not have bluegills that are consistently feed trained. We do know they are taking some feed, but it's nothing like it was, last year when you would have just the entire pond would be erupting with 3-foot high splashes and just big bluegills rolling over each other trying to get to the pellet feed. So that made me sort of settle down a little bit, because I knew, okay, well, they're getting the food, they're getting the nutrition they need to jumpstart that growth, and that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
What I was gonna say, just to kind of go to that point and talk about how big those fish were looking,
Yeah.
because they weren't eating any pellet food. I mean, how many days did your dad throw feeder after feeder worth of food into this pond, and nothing came to
Nothing
it?
but the fat heads. The
Yeah.
fat heads are highly conditioned on the pellet feed, and we have large fat heads too. So we know that once the fish got big enough, they also turned on the fat heads and were eating them. And by way of the fat heads, they were getting some pellet feed.
Yeah, but so we came in, when was that? Maybe in April, you started to do more surveying of those fish, because they weren't really hitting the feed. So naturally, you would assume they're probably gonna not be measuring that high. I mean, we stood on the dock a couple months prior, and you were like, oh, it would be great if we could hit 120% relative weight.
Yeah.
And you were seeing on average, what, 135% relative weight? No pellet feed.
No pellet feed.
So, I mean, I feel like that is one of those big moments from this project. And really, I mean, that wasn't the big point that we were trying to, I mean, we wanted to prove that, rebuilding the food chain, but I don't think that we were expecting to see that level of proof that they don't need that pellet feed in that early time to still produce those big.
Well, I mean, it's
Relative
tough
weight.
too, when you think about the size class that we stocked in. I did not stock in large fish. I mean, I think 250 fish that went in with my stocking in October were 4 to 5-ish inches. The rest were legit fingerling. I mean, they were very small fish, because I was trying to give them as much time in this system to acclimate and sort of figure their life out. And then, the plan has always been to grow the fish that were actually born here. So the spawns that started occurring once the water temps were ready this spring, we started to have the spawning happen. The fish grown here are the fish that I want to see go to trophy level. I think it's going to be easier. So, it's been difficult, because it's like, a 3-inch fish can't get on a pellet. There's a gate issue there. Their mouth's not quite big enough. So, we had thing we experimented with. The fatheads really pulled through for us. That was something that was very beneficial right before these fish hit the beds. And then once the fish that were mature and ready to spawn did, we believe that they had a lot of eggs that survived. You know, we were a little concerned that we were going to have higher survivability because the conditions out here were so pristine. And then that's when the crawfish showed up. And had the polar concern. I was totally convinced that my bluegills didn't spawn because the crawfish had just taken over or eaten all the eggs. So, but now we have evidence to the contrary. We've had successful spawns. We've got tons of YOY bluegill that are stacking up and measuring up and looking great. So it's been really cool.
So let's talk about the voids that we found, because you just touched on some of the
Yeah.
voids. So obviously we created a void when we took the cyanobacteria out, and the green algae filled that very nicely.
Yes.
And then the zoos stacked on top of that.
Right.
And then I've never seen fathead swarms like you have here. How many fatheads did you stock?
About 20 pounds,
They're
not per acre, total.
total 20 pounds. I bet I could run a net down this end of the dock
Yeah.
and come up with 20 pounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are everywhere in
Prolific.
this pond. So, you know, that void filled. And then all of a sudden, crawfish that were here didn't have a predator.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up with that explosion of crawfish. And you know, if you haven't followed this, that was kind of a depressing setback. That we didn't see coming. We were blindsided by it. Maybe we shouldn't have been, but I don't know how many people have actually taken on through these steps. And the real challenge with the crawfish is when we bound the phosphorus and did the reset, we only took that top layer of the sediment and bound the phosphorus in that. We didn't bind the phosphorus that was down below that.
Right.
So as those crawfish start to burrow in that and churn through it as they do, they reactivated phosphorus that we didn't want to see.
Yeah.
So that's been a bit of a ride.
It has. And I think you have to make it really clear, which is why I have tried to put out as much content as possible about the crawfish, is that I'm not talking about you got a couple 100 pounds. I'm talking about we had a crawfish invasion of biblical proportion. And a lot of people will probably be like, there's no way. I'm telling you. It is like something out of a sci-fi movie. We feel confident that we've gotten a hold on it and that it's at a more manageable level. We definitely see a reduction in the number of size classes of crawfish. I'm actually looking at a trap right now. You want to go get that trap and show them?
Or do you want me to
Trap?
pull one out?
Well, no, I want to show them the trap because I
Okay.
want them to see that they're much smaller.
What the heck?
John messed up.
I messed up the camera.
You want to just, here, just.
There we go.
Right here.
It's better.
You want to just pull this one?
I got it.
Okay. So when we were setting these traps to run catch per unit for testing, which estimates the density of crawfish in my 5-acre pond, these traps were loaded with mega crawfish. I'm talking about crawfish bigger than I've ever seen, and they would just constantly fill and refill the trap. And this is what we're coming up with today. This is still a large number of crawfish, but you guys can look in there and see these are much smaller than what I've showed you previously.
And this is a tiny fraction
Yeah.
of what that trap would have had in it. What
Yes.
was that, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Hang on, guys. Woo!
Crawfish.
So we've really done everything at a scientific level. So like she said, when we ran crawfish estimates before we did heavy trapping, we were at about 19 pounds. And then once we trapped heavily, we brought in Kendall and he came in with over 100 traps that we set and we caught over 500 pounds of
Yeah.
crawfish.
In 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days. And it was hard work.
And I want to bring another point about that because K Fred, if you've not subscribed to his YouTube channel, go do that and watch the video. It's part 1 and part 2 because there were so many crawfish. These were custom made 5-foot pillow traps and they were literally spaced 5 foot apart. I think we had 16 traps run just on the main dock here, and they were slam full when we pulled them. So it's not,
50 pounds in 12
yeah,
hours.
50
off of
pounds
the
in
dock
12
alone.
hours just off the main dock. And that's a small portion compared to the other 5 acres out here. So it really was, like I said, like biblical proportion of these crawfish came in and took over. Yeah.
We did have a question.
Oh,
Pam asked, I want to know how many inches was one of the biggest crawfish.
so I have some pinchers that I saved because I'm actually going to make earrings out of them. That was the biggest crawfish that I saw. But the one that we measured, I want to say it was 9 inches. I've got a picture of it. I'll find it, Pam, and post it. But I think it was 9 inches when we measured it on my weighboard. So we'll see. Heads up.
Maybe you can drop that in the comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
try to find it.
Well,
You asking me to
I'll-
multitask?
No, I was her to drop 10 in the comments.
Oh,
You can both drop. it in
well,
the
I got a
comments.
smaller one coming at me now, but,
Yeah.
but anyways, back to what we were saying, when we followed up and did the same repeat testing, 1 trap per acre, 24 hours. What was that, a week after K-Fred came? We were down to 9 pounds of crawfish caught. And then we repeated it again the following week, and we were down to 4 pounds of crawfish. So we've progressively gone downward, which is why we decided when we came back this week that we were safe to start doing some of the corrective treatments again, because to be honest, we showed up when we knew we had the crawfish problem. We knew it was a problem. We didn't anticipate it was quite as bad as it was. And we did a maintenance dose of Metaflock, and it lasted what? Three days?
Yeah.
3 days. That's how bad the crawfish were. I mean, you have no idea how bad it was. It
Well, and I
was
think-
like a tornado. Came
Yeah, it
in.
was.
It ripped the
It
whole
was,
place
and I think
apart.
this is something that we haven't talked about yet, but I think if you look at the big picture and look at the timing of the crawfish boom, it was the worst possible time
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
because you're injecting that phosphorus back into the system right as the summer heat
Uh-huh.
is hitting. Literally our maximum amount of sunlight hours is
Yep.
hitting in that window. So that blip, was a big blip, and it led us into what we're doing this week, which was applying a larger dose of Metaflock. But let's talk about some of the triggers and the things that we're monitoring that led us to take action now, rather than let things get bad.
Sorry, we did have one other question. Melissa asked what kind of crawfish they were compared to what's in Pennsylvania.
These were red swamp crawfish. They're native to Louisiana, but over the last several years, they have become invasive to, just about every state in the Southeast. They're actually illegal to purchase and fish with as live bait in almost every state in the United States because they are highly destructive, extremely invasive. And when they get to the sizes that we had out here and in high number, they will destroy my banks. They will tear up my dam. I mean, they become literally like an ecosystem nightmare. Not to mention, they forage for and take up resources that were meant for the fish that I stocked in here. So it was like a double whammy. It's like they're going to tear up the pond literally from the bottom to the top.
Well, you couldn't cast a line in here,
No,
catch a bluegill because all you could catch was a craw.
we were literally catching the crawfish on hook and line, like every cast catching the crawfish. So it was crazy. It was wild.
We've done a lot of things since that we've been able to monitor a lot of really cool things, especially with the real time
Yeah.
monitoring of the dissolved oxygen. So we know exactly what's going on. And that really told a big story when I think that's when we really knew there was a serious problem with the crawfish, because we went from having really great maintained dissolved oxygen levels to that system just up and down on a daily basis. And it's continued that way for a little bit now. So I think being able to monitor that closely has helped us to know a lot about what your water's doing out here.
I think had we not seen it
Mhm.
get so dramatically cyclic that we may not have acted as quickly as
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
And looking at the dissolved oxygen 2 nights ago before we applied the Metafloc, we hit a low on our surface probe of 0.94 milligrams per liter. So near death. And yesterday we completed the Metafloc application and saw immediate changes in the dissolved oxygen. So overnight, last night, our low was 3.34 milligrams per liter, and that was only for one 15-minute window. When we look at the entire overnight period, the average was 5 or 6 milligrams per liter.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, for a body of water in Alabama that today was 80 degrees water temperature, to have that kind of overnight dissolved oxygen is incredible. So that's the difference in taking that cyanobacteria bloom back out, finding that phosphorus back up, and getting that biological activity adjusted so that we don't have that balloon consuming
Right.
oxygen all night long.
It's a good point. We're monitoring everything out here. I don't think you guys understand like how scientific a lot of this is. It's helped me be a better pond owner. And I think the goal for me anyway is to make sure that as many people as possible get this information. This is an ongoing effort that we have out here. We're doing a lot of this in real time. So as information comes out, we're happy to give it out to you. We do have case studies that are being done out here. How many case studies are we running on the Slab Lab right now?
Well, we,
Every weekend.
so, I mean, the main case study was the recovery of the Slab Lab, which is
Yes.
it started as a year-long case study, but we're at a year and I feel like we've just started. So that went out the door. Man, this gets expensive fast.
Yeah.
So we started with a year-long case study just showing the recovery of an ecosystem after a reset. But then, I mean, the case study on the crawfish and the complete destruction of it, how we went about removing them, how that impacted everything and where we're at today because of it, how quickly they can absolutely disrupt the system. We know it's 24 hours after they're fully established like it is. I mean, what else do we have going on? We've got a lot of stuff. I mean, we're studying the zooplankton, we're studying the invertebrates. What are you looking at?
Peter's about to go off.
There's about to be a fathead frenzy behind us.
Squad, y'all hear it?
Yep.
My Texas hunter going off for my 7 p.m. feeding, so.
And every single fish that hits the pellet will be a fathead.
That's right.
We had somebody ask how they get a Slab Lab hat. You can go on Natural Waterscapes if you buy on our website. I can't remember what the value is, but if you type in Slab Hat in the coupon code, you'll get a free Slab Lab hat with your purchase from Natural Waterscapes. I think is it 100? Is it 200? I don't know. Go to Natural Waterscapes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But if we don't have them listed for sale, we should probably list them for sale too.
They are listed for sale as well. I should
Yeah.
say that.
Perfect.
They're also for sale if you would just like to buy one. What else?
What else you got, girlfriend?
Do you base your Metafloc treatments, initial and maintenance, off of the water column samples or sediment samples? Ooh, that's a really good question.
Hey, Mark Dyer, how
Yeah.
are
You
you?
want me to start
Mark?
that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a really great one, Mark. Good job. You're good at setting it up. So when we started the reset, the biggest portion of how we planned our reset was based on the sediment data that we captured. We collected sediment samples from the bottom using an Ekman dredge, and then it takes about 4 weeks to run sediment phosphorus fractionation, and that number, which is the reactive phosphorus available that can release into the water column, that's the number that we got from the sediment fractionation, and that's what we use to calculate how much Metafloc was needed during the reset that we did. But for the maintenance dose, that's actually a 2-part. So when we did a maintenance dose a couple months back, we based that on the phosphorus level that was in the water at that time.
Yeah.
because we were starting to see a little bit of an uptick. There's a stream that anytime it floods, that water comes in and it's really high in phosphorus. And we obviously have some other residual issues from things getting stirred up and whatnot. So when we just most recently did a treatment yesterday, that was based specifically on clarity. And that clarity factor, when we're dosing for clarity, we're dosing to flock out the cyanobacteria. And something that was really cool that we got to see when we most recently did that, because we're also collecting samples and looking at cell counts before and after treatment. Before treatment, I think our cells per milliliter on cyanobacteria were around 55,000. One day later, they were at 0. But in that, the green stayed.
Yeah.
The beneficial green algae stayed even through the maintenance treatment. So I think that's a good thing to note, is that we can, if we treat things naturally and not using chemicals, we can keep good things in here that we want and not remove them, but wipe out the bad. So I
Right.
think that was a really cool thing we got to see when we were running those numbers on our treatment from was it April? I think it was April when we did that particular test to look at those. So
That's something we haven't really talked about, but we're speaking of case studies, here we go.
Let's do it.
Another case study in the making is, comparing that to the chemical treatments. So
Yeah.
a lot of people will go at cyanobacteria with the
Proper.
chemical treatment,
Yeah.
and you're gonna lose your greens, so you're not gonna have your feed through your food web.
Right.
So this is a much more precise way to take out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff.
well, Mark keeps rolling in the good questions.
Yeah.
So Mark also asked, how many sediment samples per surface acre of a lake are taken each time you perform? Do you apply Metafloc evenly, or do you increase in areas where sediment samples show higher phosphorus concentrations? So we worked alongside Natural Lake to determine what exactly we needed, and they felt like for this body of water, because just because of its size, that only one was needed, but on larger bodies of water, they would recommend
Yeah.
a larger number. And I think it's case by case. So I think they're going to be the best resource to guide that on bigger bodies of water. When we did the Metafloc application, the first application, you'll have to go back and watch that video. That was kind of like riding a bucking bronco on that boat. We had the totes of Metafloc strategically placed around the pond, and we used a trash pump and lay flat pipe to pump that out into the water from a boat that is very hard to steer when you have that trash pump blowing all that.
You essentially have a jet in the
Just a
back.
jet.
Yeah.
Counter it with a trolling motor. That's
It was
under pedal.
crazy.
Yeah.
So
We
they,
finally learned to actually drive the boat with the fire hose nozzle. We pointed the opposite direction of where we wanted to go, and we could actually maneuver the boat in tandem.
but great question about how we applied it. We did want to get it as evenly throughout the water body as possible. And we also wanted to get it out as quickly as possible so that we had even distribution and it was all flocking at the same time. Now we've done it a few different ways since, depending on what you're looking to get out of it. Sarah's got 2 really big surface aerators here that are 3 horsepower each. So we have done a maintenance dose directly into the aerator. Sarah's done that with her dad.
I'm sure.
No, yeah. She ran into it, but we aren't going to go there.
I didn't run into it. He drove me into the aerator, and as I'm pouring the Metafloc is coming up out of the aerator all over me. So thanks, Dad. Love you,
But
mean it.
when we did this most recent application, we sprayed. We put a little bit of it right into the aerators, but the majority of it we sprayed across the whole surface as well, because if we're looking to flock out, and that's one of the main goals that we had in that instance, if we want to flock, we want to get as much distribution through the entire water as quickly as possible.
Right.
And you mentioned Natural Lake, great resource, fantastic partner for this project. Other partner that's been very helpful is Casco. Mentioned the surface aerators.
Yep.
But, the surface aerators are what got us through those periods where DO was low.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
They're doing a great job of circulating the water and helping to maintain the DO.
That's right.
Man, Mark's really getting the good
Mark,
questions.
just come to the Slab Lab. Mark, just get a plane and get on a plane and come to the Slab Lab, Mark. Just come on now.
Mark said, how deep in the sediment does the Metaflock aim to penetrate and sequester the phosphorus? I guess I'll keep answering them since I'm the one that talks about it all the time. So I would say the answer is it depends on what you decide based on your conversations with someone like Natural Lake or with us, based on the conditions that you have, what kinds of fish species that you have in there, or other conditions. So if you have a lot of carp or catfish that are going to be stirring the bottom, then you're going to want to aim for doing a deeper sediment locking dose, so down to 20 centimeters. Here, we didn't really see any of that as an issue. We went to 10, and then the crawfish just wrecked that. So it's usually in between 10 and 20 centimeters is what that sediment locking dose is, because that's what they found is what is capable of releasing back up into the water column.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Keep them rolling, Mark. We're happy to answer. I do want to circle back a little bit. We were talking about the monitoring and some of the things that we talked about, the dissolved oxygen and the real-time things that we have going. We're going to make that data available via our website so that you can watch along and learn alongside of us. So that's done through the My Pond app. And if you haven't yet, you have a pond, get in there, map your pond. It's at mypond.naturalwaterscapes.com. It's going to give you a pile of information about your pond. It's going to give you soils, geology, the watershed area, the weather at your exact point. It's going to predict your best fishing windows. It's going to allow you to enter depth points and calculate a bathymetric map, which is critical for determining how much you treat with many of the products.
Right.
So generating that water volume is a very key point. Lots of other cool things in there, and Sarah's been using it to track her fish.
Yep.
We just rolled out the ability to enter that data by voice. And by just rolled out, I mean at about 3:00 this afternoon, it started working.
I haven't tested it yet with my southern drawl. We'll see. So
We
don't
don't know.
say it's working yet.
We don't know that it works with Southernese.
We
And
have
that's
to figure that out
diet.
first.
John Dyer asked what frequency the muck tablets are being applied now and moving forward. And for the time being, we're applying those once a month, and they're being applied at a heavy rate because there's a ton of muck here.
Yep.
And we want to eat as much of that up as possible. So right now that's being applied at 30 pounds an acre once a month. And we're going to, when we are actually at the 12-month point, now we're at the 12 months since the death,
Yeah.
but the end of September was when we started the reset. So we'll come back 1 year and we'll take the core samples like we did. We have a percussion core that we put down in the water, and we have a whole bunch of different points that we measured that at. And so we'll come back at that and look at those numbers and see where we're at. What?
Yep.
Oh.
Crawling out of a Texas hunter habitat.
But so for now we're treating that once a month, and we're really using the maximum rate right now, just because we want to keep chewing away at that muck. It won't always be that way though.
And let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that I know Sarah's mentioned multiple times recently, and we're on a number of Facebook groups and we see the fish kills that people are having. This is the critical window for people in the South. If you don't have aeration going, you need to have aeration going. And especially if you've got a bloom, especially if you have a bad bloom, good way to tell is to get your Secchi disc out and measure your Secchi depth. I'm going to say if you're certainly less than 12 inches right now,
You're in the danger
you're
zone.
in serious risk.
Big danger zone.
Those organisms, anything that does photosynthesis, produces oxygen during the daytime. And you'll see this when we release the charts of the DO. produces it during the daytime and will drive the water to supersaturation. So you'll be sometimes 150, 200% saturation during the daytime, but every single one of those organisms overnight, as soon as the sun dips, starts to consume oxygen. So you get your fish, crawfish, all your bacteria, and your plant life all consuming oxygen. It sucks the oxygen out of the water body. We did a kind of a back of the napkin calculation here at the Slab Lab, and this was about 2 weeks ago. So different set of numbers than we have today, but 1,600 pounds of oxygen was being consumed in a 24-hour period here. That's a lot of oxygen. Oxygen is not a heavy molecule. So what we did today here is we actually dropped in a supplemental aerator, just a smaller surface aerator that as we're monitoring the DO, if we see anything happening that we don't like, we can kick that supplemental aerator on to just give us a little boost. And that's something that, you know, across the South in particular, as you're having these heat waves, it's really good to have one of those on hand. If you don't have it on hand, we do stock them in our Texas warehouse. They ship the same day if you order before 2 o'clock. So that can get in your hands very quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing, Sarah, this was something that Sarah did. We didn't know initially when Sarah had the bad kill if every fish died. I mean, she had a pretty strong feeling they did, but she didn't know for sure. And one of the things that you're going to see if you unfortunately experience a fish kill because you weren't able to catch it is the ammonia levels spike. And so we shipped down a bunch of our Rapid Back, which is a rapid acting beneficial bacteria treatment that's going to target the ammonia. And that brought those levels down to non-detect very quickly. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that most fish kills are not complete kills, and protect the fish you have left, because if you don't, then you're going to have a secondary kill. It's very likely if you don't clean up the conditions quick. So ammonia is so hard when you already have stressed water with low oxygen, and then you're just making it so difficult for them to breathe on top of that. It's literally suffocating.
Well, and all those dead fish are just a nutrient
Yeah,
source
yeah.
level back into the water.
That's right.
So it has been typical Slab Lab fashion. It's been a 14-hour day here at the Slab Lab. So
Been here since 6.
let's screen. Do we have any more questions?
We have a couple. Sorry, I was waiting for you to
Yeah,
get through your.
let's hit the questions and
Well-
final thoughts, and we will go get some Mexican in our bellies.
Margarita.
Hey. Well, Mark
He's already had one.
Oh, it was not. Mark just thanked us for our transparency, and that I think
That's
we
been a big thing
really
here. Yeah.
push that hard here. Is I think there's not a lot of good stuff out there that's just open and available for the general public, and that was one of our goals in this, was just to teach everybody. So yes, that has been exactly what we wanted to do.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that.
John asked, do the muck tablets affect the flock treatment? And the answer is no. That's, I don't know. That's a simple one. I don't know. I could get a more complex one from Landon, but Natural Lake helped us to dial in exactly how we were going to do the reset. And that was part of it. And there was no impact to the sediment reset by working on the muck layer at the same time.
Yeah, I would say that.
That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
That's a
Yeah.
really good
It
question.
is, and I would say that, actually, rather than harming the flock treatment, they're going to, as that flock hits the bottom, start to break that down. So the muck pellets have both enzymes and bacteria in them, and the enzymes break down the fibrous material so that the bacteria can then digest it. So it's a team effort down there.
Oof, this is a really good question. Mark, we should just hire you for
You can just write
content
questions for
questions. For real, man. Okay. Are muck reducing tablets a worthy investment if you don't have aeration, ensuring oxygen at the sediment interface to allow bacteria to grow and work aerobically?
Yeah.
That is a
Question.
key question. And I would say this. Yes and no. I would say that if you have a pond without aeration, then I would say in those deeper areas that are deeper than maybe what, 3-4 feet, or would you say even deep?
So here's what I'm gonna say.
Okay,
And this is not gonna be a surprise to you.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb is out, data is in.
Mhm.
So get a DO profile.
true.
Take a DO meter, get a dissolved oxygen profile, see where your DO drops off below 2 milligrams per liter. And if you look at those depths around the water body, I'd be okay treating them with the muck pellets.
Mhm.
I did learn on a Texas A&M webinar a couple weeks ago that there are actually some specialized pellets that have the anoxic bacteria that you can use for sludge. I think they're primarily from the wastewater treatment industry and pretty expensive. But the muck biotics pellets and our muck remover pellets are oxygen loving. So I would stay above that thermal line.
Got a huge turtle walking through the grass right now. So often in bigger bodies of water, I mean, you can also spot treat the shorelines. Some ponds, they really, all the muck stacks up along the edges because that's where everything's falling in. Bigger lakes where maybe you don't own the whole water body. Again, that's somewhere where you can still focus those pellets in areas where you know you can make a difference still. And every little bit counts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're putting them in and it's a waste of money because it's organic material that you're breaking down, and it's less nutrients that are going back up into the water. So even if you're just treating shoreline areas with muck treatments, it's benefiting your pond in some way.
And I think one of the things that you definitely noticed here, Sarah, is that you went from that fluffy sink into the
Ugh.
D kind of muck
Sludge.
to more of a soil cap. So you can
Yeah.
actually step and find firm ground now.
Yeah.
So that's much less likely to mobilize into the water column if you have a turnover or a wind event or.
When I had to wade out to
Kinda
pull
different.
crawfish traps, I was surprised at how solid the bank was down there when I waded out. Because I know just a couple of, years prior, I was actually shooting a video out here with some buddies of mine and I had to wade out. And I mean, I started to sink. I took 2 steps in the water, started to sink. So I know that there's something working here and that's a long-term play, muck reducing by way of pellets. You have to be willing to know that that's a long-term play. But I mean, owning a pond is a long-term play. So
Yeah.
Sure is. Any last thoughts before we hang it up and go get dinner?
I don't think so.
I was just gonna say, it's hot, your water's getting hotter. If you don't have aeration or if you haven't been using any beneficial bacteria to keep your water clean, I mean, that would be for right now, July, August, this is prime time for fish kills. And if you are lacking any aeration, I strongly recommend, I mean, if you don't have power, we have solar options too. I mean, just do something. If you love your pond and your pond has a lot of value to you, put that investment into it and it's going to pay itself back.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Do want to point out that our team is available to you. We're at naturalwaterscapes.com. You can use a chat option on our website to connect to our team during business hours or leave a message after business hours. You can email our team at support@naturalwaterscapes.com. And if you jump on the My Pond app before you contact them, they'll actually be able to pull up your pond information when they're talking to you. And you can talk in real specifics with real data instead of generalities. So very helpful tool there as well. But thanks for joining us. We are out.
Slab Lab out.
Margarita
next time.
time.
Until next time.